It's no secret the Chiefs' offense has been less than ideal this year, and that can only fall to one person at this point, right? Matt Nagy. Well, we're going to talk about some potential Matt Nagy replacements right here on the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Jace Andrews, as per usual. Well, we're going to talk about pretty much everything from the ins and outs of this offense and what has been wrong and why it could potentially be Matt Nagy, because at this point, I don't really know who else to blame. So let's first look at kind of just the comparison of the 2 seasons that the Chiefs have had over the past 2 years. You had Eric Bieniemy last season up until the Super Bowl before Matt Nagy took over, and then Matt Nagy all this year. Points per game, down a lot. Passing yards per game, down by over 40. Rushing yards per game, a little similar, but the fact that you have Isaiah Pacheco both years, he was a rookie last year, and I would argue last year was harder because it was a rookie, and then you had Clyde and Jerick, and Clyde and Jerick haven't exactly been the greatest, and you still have 115 last year, and you only have 103.8 this year. Not what I want. Obviously, the yards per game, if you combine those, is going to be more. And maybe the biggest one of all, the wins at this point in time last year, 13. The wins this year, 10, which 10 is not bad. I don't want to say that's bad. But you have to look at that when thinking about how this offense has played, especially when the defense has been locked down to pretty much every single team they faced. I want to start with this by saying Matt Nagy, in my opinion, was never the guy. He hasn't had success in pretty much anywhere he's gone to. He didn't work with the Bears. He came to the Chiefs as kind of just this basically analyst, coordinator, passing coordinator, kind of working with the offense. And when Bieniemy went to Washington, it was Nagy who took over based on Andy Reid's wantingness, which I understand. I think that was a good choice. It worked out in the Super Bowl, but I just never thought that he was the offensive coordinator that this team needed. He's never been that guy to go and make an organization better. And with this organization, it wasn't to make him better. It was literally just keep him the same, and he couldn't even do that. I do have to look at Patrick Mahomes because over 16 games before this past Sunday, he hadn't done really too much. I mean, 27 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 4,000 yards, 67.2. I mean, I say he didn't do too much. Patrick's numbers are always just insane when I look at them, but the fact that he's had season lows in completion percentage, he's had season lows in third down percentage, he's had season lows in touchdowns. I mean, pretty much he's just in a down year. And obviously, the wide receivers aren't great, and there's other factors that aren't just Matt Nagy, but ultimately, this offensive scheme blows. It's never looked fluid. It's never looked like the Chiefs have been really wanting to do what that's been called. I mean, there's been times where there's been trouble getting the play call in. I think, again, that's why this past weekend against the Bengals was so crucial, because they cut down that playbook. They said, we're done running these 15,000 plays we have. We're going to cut it down to basically in half and just run these plays that have worked and see what happens. And little do you know, you have some of your best plays all year. You have Pacheco running all over the field. You have Rashee Rice with his longest catch of his career. It just worked out. Now, obviously with the title, who could replace Nagy, though, if fired? Because at this point in time, you're probably thinking, okay, well, if Nagy goes, what are the options? Like, I don't want to just fire Nagy and then, he got us to 10 wins. He's got us to the playoffs, and we just have nobody. That's exactly why you fire him, because there are plenty of options. We're going to talk about all of them right here, with the first one being the guy I just mentioned, Eric Bieniemy. He's the Washington offensive coordinator, and this one is on the first one just because he's familiar with the team. And there's a chance that when Ron Rivera gets fired this upcoming Monday, because it's very obvious that's going to happen, that the Commanders may just clean house. They may just say, we're going to fire the offensive coordinator, we're going to fire the defensive coordinator, we're going to fire Ron Rivera, we're going to fire everybody. Now, that may not be the case, and so that's why it's one of those things of I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. But Bieniemy would be the guy if fired. I think that is very clear. And he's done exactly what he did with Washington as he did with the Chiefs. He's just made them better. If you look at the 2022 numbers on the right compared to the 2023 numbers on the left, you can tell it's just been better. Points per game are up, yards per play are up, third down percentage is up, red zone percentage. That's a huge one, up almost 15% in terms of getting a touchdown in the red zone. And I'm going to say it, Sam Howell has not been a good quarterback. And there was a good 4-week span where Eric Bieniemy and that offense tricked us into thinking Sam Howell was the starter for Washington going forward. And the past 5 weeks, we've realized that he is not. He is exactly what he was, a 5th-round pick, which good backup. I think he'll be good in the league for a long time as a backup, but he's never going to be that starting quarterback, or at least he won't with Washington. And he made him look like that guy for 4 to 5 weeks earlier in the season. I mean, to be quite honest, he just made a Washington offense look good, just in general. I mean, this offense has been a struggling boat for a long time. I mean, back to Alex Smith days when he went over there when he got injured. Back when they had Robert Griffin III and that offense was piping. I mean, there wasn't really much in between there. They've gone from quarterback to the different guys. I mean, there's been Taylor Heineke. There's been Carson Wentz. There's just been a lot of moving pieces that the offense has never looked great. And guess what? Eric Bieniemy, he made him look great. And I think the bigger thing that maybe out-trumps anything about his stats, his notices, the reason we should hire him is the feel around the locker room of Eric Bieniemy. And I think that's why it stinks that he's not here. Patrick Mahomes said this earlier in the season, actually defending Eric Bieniemy after it was talking about him being too harsh on his Washington Commanders players. And Patrick said, EB is going to be harsh on you. He's going to really try to get the best out of you every single day. He's going to hold you accountable whenever you don't even want to hold yourself accountable. And it made me a better player. Eric Bieniemy made Patrick Mahomes a better player. If he's available, you take him. If you would like Eric Bieniemy to be back with the Kansas City Chiefs in this upcoming offseason, if he is fired, then I want you to type EB in the comment section because I think it'd be interesting to see what he could potentially do. Let me know in the comment section below if you would like Eric Bieniemy back, then type EB. Second guy I want to look at here, Ken Dorsey, the former Bills offensive coordinator. And this one strikes me as probably the most likely if Nagy were to be fired right after the season. And I think the reason for that is, well, he was let go by the Bills in Week 10. And to me, he was the scapegoat for a Bills rough start. It was simply that. The offense was not the problem. In fact, the offense was probably the opposite of that. It was the reason the team was going well. Now, they kind of had a harsh reaction after that bad loss to the Broncos. But at the same time, stats don't lie. And Mina Kim said this first, so I'm going to give her credit. But when they fired him after Week 10, this was their stats through Week 10. First in success rate. Third in EPA play. Fourth in QBR. Thirds in yards of play. Second and third down conversion. And third in red zone efficiency. You're telling me you're going to fire that? It makes no sense. He was not the problem. He was the scapegoat. And if you hire him with the Chiefs, there's a little bit of a Bills-Chiefs rivalry going on. I think that would be nice because it would kind of stick it to the man in a way of, listen, this guy was not the problem you were having. To be quite honest with you, the Bills run through and out of Josh Allen. If he plays well, they're going to win. If he plays bad, they're going to lose. And ultimately, that's just what it was. And they blamed Ken Dorsey for the slow start on some tough losses. It's kind of dumb, but at the same time, I would like it if the Chiefs got him. I think that would be, first of all, kind of a smack in the face to the Bills because I think Ken Dorsey would kill it with Mahomes and Rashee Rice and, of course, hopefully T. Higgins next year, maybe even a draft pick, Adonai Mitchell. There's a lot of guys we can talk about and we'll continue to talk about here as we get closer to the draft and knowing what exactly pick the Chiefs do have. But before we get into the second part of the show with a couple other of the Matt Nagy replacements, go check out PrizePicks at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, and they're the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Once again, prizepicks.com/CLNS and use that code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. And I'll tell you what, testing my skills on PrizePicks this season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, and it's added so much excitement to my sports viewing experience. It's so much fun. Plus, on top of it, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types will make PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. There's my entry for this Sunday's game, as I've got two playoff-looking teams, Baker on the Bucks and Jonathan Taylor with the Colts. Need a win to get in the playoffs, so I'm going to go more on Baker's passing yards and more on Jonathan Taylor rushing yards. They're going to need to have big games to push their teams into the postseason, and I like both those. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of $100. Shout out to PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. Once again, go check it out. We're going to put that link in the comment section and description of this video. So there you go. Go check it out right now. All right, the third one may be a bit of surprise to some of you, but Zach Robinson. He's the QB coach for the Los Angeles Rams, and he's regarded as one of the top young offensive minds in the NFL right now, working behind Sean McVay, who was once the top offensive mind in the National Football League, and has obviously shown why that way. Now, I want to go to some kind of knowledge around the fan base, and this is where I think we got to dive into what the basically notion is about him around the league. As for Robinson's reputation around the NFL, it's glowing. McVay gave him some play calling opportunities in the preseason, and Robinson fared well, so he has experience. Now he's viewed as one of the fastest rising coaches in football and a top offensive coordinator candidate in 2024. A splash of McVay's offensive ideology and that experience of learning how to make year-to-year adjustments schematically makes Robinson a high upside for the Chiefs offense. I think this would be amazing. I love Zach. If you're not going to hire a guy who's already been an offensive coordinator, then you go with Zach Robinson. If you don't want to pay the Ken Dorsey money, if you don't want to pay the Eric Bieniemy money, if you don't want to hire from within, then I like Zach. I think he's the best option outside of that. There's a lot of good things. He's played collegiate football back with Oklahoma State. He understands the game really well. And Sean McVay, like I said, is a great offensive mind, and he hired Robinson. So if McVay, who was a top offensive mind, likes Robinson, and the league likes Robinson, it makes sense. I would love to see him with the Kansas City Chiefs as their new offensive coordinator if they do let Matt Nagy go. And honestly, I would love that. And given McVay may retire after this year, it opened it wide up for Zach to come over to the Chiefs and serve a nice role. Let me know out of the top three candidates here, who would be your choice? As we got one more candidate, but these are obviously the top three in terms of what I think would happen if Matt Nagy were fired, who the Chiefs would go after. And that'd be number one, Eric Bieniemy, if he's fired. If you think it's going to be him, if you like him the most, then type B. If you like Ken Dorsey, the former Bills offensive coordinator who was fired for no reason and is open right now to come, well, then type D for Ken Dorsey. And if you like the Zach Robinson hire, if you're kind of with me, you want a new guy in here, you want a new system, you want a top offensive young mind, I mean, he's pretty young, not even 40 yet. And you could hire him as your offensive coordinator. That'd be pretty nice. And not that I want to, but thinking long term, Robinson could end up being maybe the successor to Andy Reid in 5, 6, 7 years, depending on what Andy Reid decides to do. Let me know. Then type R if you like Zach Robinson. B for Bieniemy, D for Dorsey, R for Robinson. Get in the comment section. Let me know who would be your pick for the Chiefs' next offensive coordinator if Matt Nagy were to go. The one last guy. What about a hire from within? You may have caught me saying if you're not going to hire from within. That's because this last guy is exactly that. He's one who has been in the Chiefs organization, and it's probably the next step up. In fact, he really is the obvious choice if you're hiring from within. And that would be Eric Bieniemy, as he is the Kansas City passing game coordinator. And overall, the Chiefs have really enjoyed having him. And I think we have to go back to another article that also talked about Bieniemy maybe being the next choice for the Kansas City Chiefs and that his potential to possibly be the next offensive coordinator if Nagy were to be out. So let me read this here from Sportskeeda saying, Joe Bieniemy has been with the Chiefs since 2016. He's currently the pass game coordinator for them, having worked in different positions across the offense during his tenure. He knows the system and the quarterback, and Andy Reid could possibly decide that he deserves a chance to be promoted. There's one problem I have with that. The passing game this year hasn't exactly been great. And I think blame does have to fall on Bieniemy just a bit. But it also can't be all on him because the scheme is just not good. Now, obviously, you can't scheme a good passing game when your base offense is not good. That's where I think you have to take a step back and think, okay, I understand the offense as a whole isn't exactly the greatest. But are we willing to say that the passing game could be if we let him take the shot, if we let him? And given all the Chiefs' struggles this year, I guarantee you Bieniemy would know exactly how to fix them all. He's been right there with all the receivers. He's been right there with the frustration. He's probably been one of the most frustrated guys on this team in the shadows. So it'd be kind of interesting. Is there an offensive coordinator, though, that I missed? I mentioned you the top 4 on my board, and the top 3 specifically I think would be the best. But is there someone else that maybe I missed that you would like to have? Maybe is it Frank Reich? I know maybe he talked about being done with the NFL, but do you throw some money at him, see what he would do? Let me know in the comment section, is there an offensive coordinator that I missed? If so, get that name in the comments section. We appreciate you watching. As always, I know this was a little bit of a longer video, so if you made it to the end, well, do me a favor, type real one because I know you're a real one. So we appreciate all you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and peace out.